Welcome to the Sports Podcast that will put you in the zone all the time. Welcome to Pack Sports Zone with me, your host, Peter Pac-Man Clark. What up, guys? We're here and we're back after a long time off and lots of other issues that won't even go into now. We are finally back. Pack Sports Zone here with you every week, give you the download on all the sports. And this week, it's all about the NFL as we're a day away, about 27 hours away from the start of the NFL draft, as 24 teams currently will have their picks chosen tomorrow, as 8 teams have multiple draft picks tomorrow. So there's going to be a lot of teams that won't really even care about tomorrow. But who knows? You may trade into the first round. There's always a lot of movement. I'm here to try to give you the heads up on what I think your teams will be doing. I will also be, while I'm doing that, I'm going to be going over my mock draft, which will be posted on thehuddlereport.com tomorrow. But you'll get a free preview today as we will be going over pick by pick and trying to see who do I think is everybody's going to be taking and who is your team going to take. I am live today, so you can tweet me on Twitter, PACMAN. 453323 on Twitter. You can send any questions if you want me to specifically talk a little bit more about who I think you're going to pick or what do I think your team is looking for or what they're going to do. But with that said, let's get right into it. It's NFL time, baby. And let's get right into it as we start with the number one pick in the draft. And as a team that always seems to be in the top 5 of the draft, the Jacksonville Jaguars. I think this is going to really come down to who do they rather want, Aiden Hutchinson or Travon Walker. Both of them have gotten a lot of hype towards that pick. If you talk to a couple of the Jaguar beat writers that are close to the team, they think it's down to those two people. One person that I trust said that right now they would say it'd be Travon Walker, the outside linebacker, edge rusher from Georgia. While he said, who knows, maybe by tomorrow they'll think it's Aiden Hutchinson from Michigan. So I really do think it's down to those two players, and one of those two players will be the number one pick and have their name chosen first in the draft tomorrow. Coming at number 2, the Detroit Lions. I think they're going to be the team that just picks up the scraps from the Jacksonville Jaguars. Whoever they don't take between Aiden Hutchinson and Travon Walker, I think it's just going to go to Detroit. So right now I have Aiden Hutchinson getting taken by the Jaguars because I think he's the better overall player. I think he's the number 2 pass rusher in this draft. And I have Travon Walker at number 2 to the Detroit Lions. Coming up next, the Houston Texans. Now, people really don't know what the Texans are going to do. I've heard everything from Derek Stingley. People have mentioned Ahmad Gardner. Apparently, they actually have, according to Ian Rappaport, they have him Stingley higher than everybody's favorite cornerback now, Ahmad Gardner. Who knows? I don't think anybody can really tell you before, but from what everybody is saying, it sounds like it either will be Derek Stingley or the offensive lineman Ike Ekwonu from North Carolina State. I think it's going to be Ike. I think they're going to try to solidify the line. It's going to be a very good line if they can get some pieces in there. They seem to be happy with their quarterback, so we're not going to quarterback. They seem to like Davis Mills. So it looks like we're going to go with Ike Ekwonu to be the 3rd pick in the draft. It also could have been Evan Neal, but I hear that a lot of people now are favoring Ike a little bit more, so I'm going to go with him as the 3rd pick. Now this is where it gets fun. The New York Jets. The Jets can go so many different ways, and I've seen people give mock players to them that I don't think they're going to take. I've seen people say that they could go offensive line. I don't think they will. They actually have a pretty good offensive line right now, assuming that Becton does end up being what they think he is. I have heard if Ekwonu actually slips down to 4, that will be the pick, and they will move on from Becton. I don't know. It's been 1 year. You took somebody that high in the draft last year. I don't know how you give up on them that fast. But I have them taking my top edge rusher, Jermaine Johnson, out of Florida State. People are going to get on him because he's 23 years old. Listen, there's not there is room you can grow between 21 years old and 23 years old, but it's not like a 23-year-old can't grow and get better. He has not reached his peak yet. I thought he was very productive at Florida State. I think he has all the measurables. He has the speed to get around the corner. He has the bend. I think he has what I look at as somebody who's going to be a 10 sack per season guy. And I think he's going to fit in good to that Jets team across from Mr. Lawson. So, coming up first for Hutchinson, Walker, Ekwonu, Johnson. The Giants, the New York Giants, I think they're in a great spot. I think I'll get to their second pick because they have another pick coming up in a couple picks, but I think they're in a great spot for number 5. Everybody, there's not one person that doesn't say that they're going to take a offensive lineman, even their beat writers. I have seen some people that may not have great knowledge of the team say they're going to get Ahmad Gardner at 5 because they're worried about the Jets taking him at 4. But if they took him at 4, it doesn't matter. I think they're going to get Evan Neal. I think he's going to be the guy who's going to be the right tackle for 10 years for this team. They've done actually a pretty good job rebuilding that line. They've got Glowacki from Indianapolis. They went and got Felicio to be center. They're going to have Shane Lemieux coming back at left guard. And obviously they have Jackson back at left tackle. So Evan Neal is going to complete that offensive line for them. They could use another piece because Feliciano is not a great player there. Shane Lemieux is still a little bit injury prone. So they still could use some work. But I think right now there's a great piece in Evan Neal to stick right there on the right side, and he's an unbelievable road grinder. I think he personally fits better on the right side just because he's a big guy. Now, he has lost some weight. He's gone from about 360 to about 330, 340, but he's still a big guy, and it's very tough to be a left tackle and be that big with all the athletic edges you have on that side. But you're going to have to be athletic either way. You're going to have to watch his weight, but I think he's a very good player. A guy that originally I had number 1 about 2 months ago, dropping to 5 to the New York Giants. There's another one that you got to talk about, the Carolina Panthers at number 6. People are going to talk about Kenny Pickett. People are going to talk about Malik Willis. From what I'm hearing now, it looks like they may take those quarterbacks, but I'm going to actually go with Charles Cross because that's the third position that they're looking at. Is either quarterback or is offensive line for them. That's what everybody says. That's what even they've kind of leaked out to people. And I think it's going to be offensive line because Charles Cross is a guy who's been rising a lot over the past 24, 48 hours. A lot of people don't think he's not going to get out top 10 because if he fell past the Panthers, he's snatched up by the Falcons, snatched up by the Seahawks. He's not going to make it out the top 8, 9. So he's going to go. And the Panthers don't have too many picks. Now, they prefer to trade back because they don't have much picks. But they right now, if they had to stay there and take the player that they want the most, it's probably going to be Charles Cross because, this is not a great year for quarterbacks. And we can tell that quarterbacks are just not a main position this year. If it was, we would see them actually getting picked in the top 5. If you see quarterbacks slipping out the top 5, that means that they're not really highly regarded. Now, they could end up being good. Malik Willis has a very high ceiling. I like a guy like Desmond Ridder who can do everything on the football field as a quarterback. But in terms of what the Panthers want right now, they would like to trade down. If they can't do it, I think they take the safer pick and try to help fix out that offensive line. Number 7. Now, this is where I disagree with what I'm actually going to put because when I'm doing my mock draft, I do what I think teams are going to do, not what I think they should do. I personally think the Giants right now at number 7 should take Malik Willis. I think they should. They'll have Evan Neal help out the offensive line. Then you get your future quarterback with a high ceiling. I do not think they're going to do that. From everything I've been hearing, it's looking like they will take the cornerback, Ahmad Gardner, if he's there. Because he's 6'3", 190 pounds, runs a 4.4 40. Didn't allow a touchdown all year this year at Cincinnati. He has the mojo that you kind of look for. He has that swagger personality that you want at a cornerback. The reason why I don't like him there is because I don't like taking cornerbacks that high. I think it's a position that you just need good cornerbacks. You don't need great cornerbacks because there's not great cornerbacks. So why use a top 10 on somebody who's probably not going to be great? If you go back in the history of the cornerback position, there's not many of them that get to pick a top 10 and actually end up fulfilling that. Maybe Deion Sanders, you look at Champ Bailey, you look at Rod Woodson, but most of them in the history of the last 30, 40 years do not live up to the hype of a top 10 pick. So I would avoid taking a cornerback, but Giants really love him. They say he's a perfect fit for their system. So it looks like it's sounding like that will be their pick at number 7. Number 8, the Atlanta Falcons. Now, this is a pick that can go anywhere. This can go, I've heard Jameson Williams. I've heard Garrett Wilson. I've heard offensive line they can go. I've heard they may take Malik Willis at quarterback. They can go so many different ways. It's very hard to predict what they're going to do. I think because the Falcons don't really care too much about this year, they've already jettisoned Matt Ryan away, and they signed Mariota to a 2-year deal, but he's kind of a placeholder. So they could take a quarterback, but I don't think they will because it's a weak year for quarterbacks. I think they're going to try to replace the other guy that won't be playing much this year, Calvin Ridley. And they're going to replace him with another Alabama wide receiver, Jameson Williams. Now, the reason why I went over that part about them not caring as much about this year is because Jameson Williams is probably going to miss the first half of the year as he recovers from an ACL surgery. If he never tore his ACL, he would be far and away clear the number 1 wide receiver in the draft. And he would be definitely a top 10 pick. Because of the injury, most people think he's going to land in the teens. They won't let him fall too much past that because he's that good. But they don't want to pick a guy that's going to miss half the year. However, for a team that isn't really fighting to win this year, doesn't really have a motivation to really go for it hard this year, it fits up perfectly for the Atlanta Falcons. So if anything ever happens where they find a way Calvin Ridley comes back and you got Calvin Ridley and Jameson Williams on the outside in 2023, now you're just ready to just bring in a quarterback in there and you're ready to go. So with that said, I think the Jameson Williams would be picking the Atlanta Falcons. Number 9, the Seattle Seahawks. I'm actually going to go with the first quarterback. I think Kenny Pickett will be their guy. They could look at Malik Willis, but I think Kenny Pickett is more towards the type of offense that Pete Carroll will want to run. He obviously you have Russell Wilson there for all those years. He's a running quarterback, and both Pickett and Willis can run with the ball. But I think Pickett is better in the pocket, and he's going to look for somebody who is similar to that. There's similar size and everything, so I think that would be the guy that Seattle goes for more. Pete Carroll's kind of guy. If they don't go Pickett, they could go offensive line, but I'm going to say in this situation, they go with Kenny Pickett out of Pittsburgh. New York Jets, back on the clock. This one could be a little bit weird because they could end up saying, first of all, they could really go crazy and go defense again and try to stack out that defense. But I think they're going to go to the other side of the ball. I think that they probably would take a look at Jameson Williams if he's there. But they want, like I said earlier, it's really tough to lose somebody for half a year. You want to build chemistry with Zach Wilson, their quarterback. I think they're going to go out there and get Garrett Wilson. Now, Garrett Wilson, as I said, is somebody that is being mentioned with the Atlanta Falcons. So there's a possibility he could get taken at 8, and then Jets have to decide if they want to take Jameson Williams or not. But in this situation, Falcons go with Jameson Williams, at least Garrett Wilson, the Ohio State wide receiver for the New York Jets. And that's somebody that they've really been looking for, as they got Corey Davis there. You obviously got Moore from last year. You got Berrios that they re-signed, but Berrios is somebody that they don't want to be an every down 3, and you run 3 wide receivers every time. You're not going to run him out there all the time, but small stature and everything. You want Garrett Wilson, and Garrett Wilson is a good route runner, good speed, can go deep, can go across the middle. He's a very complete wide receiver. Number 11 with the Washington Commanders. I'm going to go with the guy that's my number 1 player in the draft overall. That's Kyle Hamilton. He's a safety that can play center field. He can come up to the line and make a tackle. He can he can be the quarterback of the defense. And kind of going back to what I was talking about before with the cornerbacks doesn't seem to be as big. Like I said, you don't need great ones. You need good ones to survive. With safeties, you need really good ones. You need good ones and great ones at safety. You can't have a average safety and win, because they have to control that defense. They're the last line of defense. They got to make sure nobody gets over the top. They got to make sure nobody catches that slant and takes it to the house. they have so much more responsibility than a cornerback has right now in today's game in the NFL. Safety is so important. And with them losing Landon Collins, who was already trending downward a little bit, but with them losing him, they need somebody else that's going to be a big guy back there that can do everything. And he's over 200 pounds. Like I said, he's tall, he's rangy. People were scared off a little bit by his 40 time because they wanted it to be in the 4.4s, but he plays fast on the field. I've watched him for a long time at Notre Dame, and he's the real deal. So Kyle Hamilton is going to be a great player out of Notre Dame going to the Washington Commanders, in my opinion. At number 12, the Minnesota Vikings. Vikings, I think, are looking for a cornerback. They're looking for anyone that's going to drop. In this situation, Derek Stingley is a perfect fit for them to drop. There's a chance that if they could, they can move up if they have to get Stingley. Like I said earlier, there's a rumor of Stingley possibly even going number 3 to Houston. So they may be left without one of the top 2 cornerbacks and may have to actually take one of the lower ones like Trent McDuffie from Washington. But in this situation, they get one of their 2 guys. They get Derek Stingley. Stingley's a guy who, after his freshman year, he was by far the best cornerback in college and the best that we've seen in a long time. And the last 2 years, he's suffered injuries. Obviously, you had the shortened COVID year. So it's a little tough to really measure him just off his freshman year. But if you go back and look at his freshman tape, there's nobody better. And as I said earlier, I don't like taking cornerbacks top 10. He would have probably pushed that rule that I would have wanted him top 5. He was that good during his freshman year. But like I said, injuries pushed him down, and he may still get picked high. There's still a good chance he could go in that top 10 as somebody like the Jets may decide, all right, we need him now, we'll get him now. But in this situation, I got him slipping a couple spots out the top 10 to 12 to the Minnesota Vikings. Houston Texans back on the clock again after the Deshaun Watson trade. They get this pick from the Browns, and I think they stack out that D-line as they really are thin and kind of below average as their D tackles. I think they get the big, monstrous Jordan Davis, the big nose tackle out of Georgia, 350 pounds, but he runs a sub 540. He's so athletic. He's just unbelievably reminds me a lot of Quentin Williams when he went to the Jets. He reminds me a little bit of a bigger Jeffrey Simmons except he's not as good of a pass rusher as Jeffrey Simmons, but in terms of his disruption in the middle, he's a very big boy to try to block in that middle, and I think he would be a great help to that Texans defense right there. Baltimore Ravens at 14. I think they get the falling star. I think there's one person that I have not mentioned so far this draft that a lot of people have going top 10. Some people have as high as 2. And if you went back about 6 months ago, some people had him number 1. Kayvon Thibodeau. He is a guy, edge rusher from Oregon, slipping down the radar. There's not really a hard thing to say why he's slipping, but he was not as impressive on the field as people expected him to be this year. And even though he was okay at the combine, he wasn't great. He didn't stand out there. And the Ravens definitely want a pass rusher. They want one of those top 4, either Hutchinson, Walker, Johnson, or him, or Kayvon. So I think they're going to be lucky enough to have Kayvon slip into their laps. And the Ravens finally get that pass rusher to finally solidify that defense that was once one of the best defenses of all time and try to get back to that. Eagles with their first of 2 picks, one at 15 and one at 18. I think at this time they go and try to get Drake London. I think they're looking for a wide receiver to complement Devontae Smith on the other side. They did sign Zach Pascal, but he is better as a number 3, not a number 2. Plus, if I'm mistaken, I think it was just a 1-year deal, but I think they need to get another wide receiver in there. They need to help out their quarterback, Jalen Hurts. Their offensive line is pretty solid, so they don't need too much there. But they need to help out their defense, and they need to give them another weapon. And you got Goddard at tight end. You got Devontae Smith at wide receiver. Now you're adding another skilled wide receiver on the other end, and a big wide receiver because Devontae Smith is small. He's the deep threat. You need a big guy, and he is one thing. I'm not a big Drake London fan, but he has a wide catch radius, and he's good at contested catches. He had most contested catches in the whole of all college football last year. So I think he's the guy that's going to go number 15 to the Eagles. Number 16, the fall for Malik Willis finally ends. I think the New Orleans Saints pick him up. I think there's a great situation for him because he can sit behind Jameis Winston for at least a year. Malik Willis is not ready yet. Kenny Pickett got picked early in this draft, and I think because he's more ready to play immediately. He could come in and play day one for the Seahawks. He'll have to battle with Drew Lock, and he'll probably win out. And at worst, he'll start middle of the year. He's going to play early. You can actually sit Malik Willis the whole first year with Jameis Winston there, and you'll still be fine. I think the Saints have not, they will consider trading up to get maybe Kenny Pickett because I think they may like Kenny Pickett more, but because of them re-signing Jameis, they can sit and wait and take somebody that has a higher ceiling in Malik Willis, and I think that's a perfect fit for him. Unfortunately for a team later on, as in the Pittsburgh Steelers, that is the team that I think really covets Willis the most. And I think if they have a chance, you can definitely take a look and see if the Steelers try to trade up to try to get Willis if he starts falling. That's something I can completely see. But in this situation, I'm trying not to do trades. I'm trying to draft it straight. Obviously, there will be trades done. But in this situation, I'm going to stay with Malik Willis dropping to number 16 to the New Orleans Saints. Number 17 is the pick that everybody pretty much has loaded towards the Chargers in every single mock. Trevor Penning, offensive tackle, Northern Iowa. And the reason why is because everybody you talk to says the Chargers need offensive line help. They would love, obviously, Charles Cross to fall. Doesn't look like he's going to fall out of the top 10. So with that being said, they just have to hope and pray Trevor Penning doesn't fall, that Trevor Penning falls to them. Now, keep in mind, I have Malik Willis going to the Saints. The Saints also have offensive line needs. If they were to take Trevor Penning, the Chargers either have to reach for the next offensive lineman, maybe Bernhard Raymond, or they have to take a guard. They have to switch it up a little bit. But they will be reaching if he doesn't fall to them. That is the guy that pretty much every mock draft mocks to the Chargers, Trevor Penning. Eagles next pick at 18. I'm reaching a little bit, but I think it's because, one, I think there'll be a lot of this position taken, and I think he fits their team perfectly. George Karlaftis, I think he's from Purdue, edge rusher. I think he's a perfect fit for the Eagles system. I think that with them now moving away a little bit from what they had previous years on defense, I think they need to get younger. They need to get a little bit more dynamic. And if you look at all their previous pass rushers before, they're kind of similar. They're kind of the bigger guys that can either run a 4-3 or 3-4. They're very versatile, and I think that this is going to be one of those picks for them. I think George Karlaftis is one of those guys that are really going to fit into the Eagles team perfectly. Number 19 to the Saints. A dream pick for them because for years they've been wanting another wide receiver there to complement Michael Thomas. I think they finally get it with Chris Olave out of Ohio State. If you watch the tape on Olave, he's behind the defense almost every single time he's sent deep. I don't know how he does it. I don't know how other teams don't put an extra safety over the top, but he still finds a way to get behind the defense. He's been doing it for every year since his freshman year. He's getting behind the defense. You know he's going to get behind the defense, and you just can't stop him. He's a good route runner, and that's the reason why he can get by the cornerback, and his speed can get you by any safety. He's a guy that, if he was featured more, obviously they had great wide receivers at Ohio State. We talked about Garrett Wilson earlier. If Olave was the only guy featured in that offense, he would probably be the first wide receiver picked. He's a very good wide receiver, and the Saints are going to be very lucky to have him slip if he slips this far at number 19. Number 20 to the Steelers. I mentioned earlier they would love to get Malik Willis. They settled for their second best quarterback, Desmond Ridder. He's my top quarterback because he can do everything that Pickett and Willis can do. He can stay in the pocket. He can throw from the pocket. He has a very strong arm. He's athletic enough to get outside the pocket, and he can run for good yards, run for touchdowns. He can keep plays alive. He can make all the throws that you want him to make. And most importantly, he doesn't make mistakes. He doesn't throw much interceptions. He's good at making reads in the secondary. This is the reason why he's my number one quarterback. You have Malik Willis, who does a lot of those things. He can run better. He has a stronger arm, but he hasn't had to make the same type of reads. He went to Liberty, so he doesn't have to go against the same type of competition. You look at Kenny Pickett. Kenny Pickett is athletic, not as athletic as Ritter or Malik Willis. He has a good arm. Is not going to be better than Willis, about the same, if not a little bit worse than Ritter. So when you look at if you put everything on paper and you look everything at paper at what they're good at, what they're bad at, I think overall you have a higher floor with Ritter, and you also have a very high ceiling, not as high as Willis, but you have a very high ceiling. I think he's going to be a very good quarterback. I actually hope that he slips a little bit further and my Tennessee Titans actually end up being able to take him. But I got another pick for their pick later on. Moving on to the New England Patriots. The Patriots are always the team that picks either somebody that you don't really know as much about, or they get to pick the guy that just is the boring guy. I think they take a little bit of the boring guy this time. I think they take Trent McDuffie, the cornerback from Washington. I think that just helps out for them. Trent McDuffie is a guy that could go much earlier. If the rumors about Stingley and Gardner both go top 10, then I think it'll be very hard for McDuffie to slip this far, because I think in that 12-13 range, there's going to be a cornerback taken. So if both of the top two cornerbacks are taken early, there's a good chance that pushes him up into that 12-13 area. If one of them slips to 12-13, then I think McDuffie can slide a little bit to the New England Patriots, who are the next team that really needs a cornerback. Moving on to the Green Bay Packers. Now, my perfect pick for the Green Bay Packers will be Jahan Dotson. I think Jahan Dotson is somebody that gives them a speedy wide receiver on the outside, but he has the same knock that I think could actually knock him out the first round. Despite him being a very good wide receiver, he catches everything. He's a good route runner. He's good on special teams and punt returns, but he's small. He's 170, 180, I think it's 170 pounds, or at most 180 pounds. And he's 5'10", maybe 5'11". I mean, his best comparison in terms of body set would be maybe a smaller Emmanuel Sanders, but he's just so small that teams don't want to pick him that early. He'd be the perfect pick for the Packers, but I think they go with somebody who is my number 2 wide receiver, somebody that, despite not running a sub 4.5, he never seems to get caught on tape when you watch him. And that'll be Treylon Burks, the wide receiver out of Arkansas, about 6'3", about 220 pounds. I think most people actually in the middle of the year had him as the number 1 wide receiver. That's when he was listed at about 6'4", 230 pounds, and they thought he was going to run a 4.44. But 6'3", 220, and he runs a 4.55, slipped him down a little bit. I think people take a little bit too much into the combine numbers. They're important, but they're not important to the point where you should be pushing guys that are number 1 at their position down that far. But with that being said, it looks like he will be falling in the mid-teens to the mid-20s. I got Treylon Burks stopping at the Green Bay Packers, as they desperately need wide receivers. They need my wide receivers more than probably any other team in the league. They have Allen Lazard, they have Randall Cobb, and then they have Amari Rodgers. That's it. With Devontae Adams leaving to go to the Las Vegas Raiders, their cupboard is bare. So they definitely need wide receivers. They have 2 picks in this first round. If it were me, I would go 2 wide receivers with this, but I think they'll probably go a little bit. Most teams don't usually have to stack up on first-round picks at the same position, so I think they'll go with a different position. But with that said, they get wide receiver out of the way early at pick 22, because after Packers and Cardinals, there's a few teams that might want a wide receiver, so they're going to have to take them with their first pick. At pick 23, this is a pick for the Cardinals that they would love, actually, for somebody like Jordan Davis to fall to. I think he's a perfect fit for them. They definitely need defensive line help. With that said, they don't get it. I think they switch back to the offensive side, help out Kyler Murray a little bit, as I assume Kyler Murray will be their quarterback this year. I think they take the top guard in this draft, Kenyon Green from Texas A&M. just another blocker and maybe a boring pick to few. Nobody likes to really pick guards. First of all, nobody really likes to pick offensive linemen that much, but to pick a guard or a center, that's even more boring for most fans, but it's very important when the year comes along. So I think they're going to take him, try to protect Kyler a little bit, and I think they'll move on from there, and we'll see what they'll have after that pick. Dallas Cowboys, team that definitely can go wide receiver. They lost Amari Cooper, traded him away to the Cleveland Browns. So wide receiver is the pick you can definitely see them doing. However, they also lost La'el Collins, their offensive tackle. They also lost Connor Williams, their left guard. So they need to replace a lot of people. They also lost the tight end. So they can go a lot of different ways. But I think they're going to go offensive tackle. Bernhard Raymond from Central Michigan. He's a guy that probably will go around this range, around in 25 or so or back, 23, 24, 25. There is a chance he could slip out the first round, but he is the next best tackle in my opinion. There are a couple of guys that you can challenge him for the best tackle with, fifth best tackle with, but listen, it's just splitting hairs. It's just, in the NFL draft, the weird part about it is that you may see 10 people hate a guy and one team like a guy, and he's going to get taken in the first round. And it's just because all it takes is one team to like you. And I think one team will like him enough. He's a former tight end. He's a very athletic guy. Somebody's going to like the athleticism at tackle enough that they're going to like him and put him in there to protect their quarterback. I think the Cowboys do it this time. Buffalo Bills. Now, out of Florida, if you're a big Florida Gators fan, you always know the last name Elam. There's been about 2 or 3 of them that have come out of Florida, and a couple of them have been good. Baltimore Ravens obviously had Elam. Now it's Kyer Elam. Cornerback, I think he's a guy that Buffalo needs at cornerback because, listen, Bills need a couple things. It's either a wide receiver or as a cornerback. I know people are going to give them running backs. They're going to say Breece Hall. I don't think there's going to be any running backs taken in the first round. I think they'll wait to maybe the second round if they want to take a running back. Or third round. I think that would be more appropriate. They have a running back right now. Singletary is good. Moss, disappointment, but he has talent. He's shown that he can run. I don't think there's a reason to take a running back right now. I think if you don't take a wide receiver, you got to go cornerback, and I think they do with Elam. Tennessee Titans, my team, a team that probably about 75% of the fan base, no matter who we take, will be unhappy. There's a lot of ways they can go with this pick, but I think it's down to 3 positions. You either are going to take a quarterback, you're either going to take an offensive lineman, or you're going to take a wide receiver. I think it's too early to take Trey McBride, who's the top tight end in the draft, but you have to take wide receiver. You have Robert Woods. You have A.J. Brown. You need a third wide receiver because you can't have Westbrook Ikhine as your number 3 wide receiver. If somebody gets hurt, he has to be a starter. He's not a starter. He's barely even he's not a number 3 guy. He needs to be a number 4. He needs to be a number 5. And I know a lot of Titans fans, they fell in love with him this year. He was a dependable guy. He can't move. He really can't. He can find an open spot in the zone, sit there, and if Ryan Tannehill get it to him, he'll catch it. But he's not good. He really isn't. He's just a scarecrow. He sits right in the zone, and he'll throw it to him, he'll catch it. He's not going to move. He's not going to break tackles. He's not going to outrun anybody. He's a number 4, number 5 wide receiver. They need to get a wide receiver in there. Now, with that said, they also need an offensive lineman. And they need an offensive lineman because Quisenberry was horrible last year. He may be replaced by Dylan Ravens, the second-round pick last year. And it's just one of those situations where they just need to get some players in there on the offensive side of the ball because their offense cost them last year, moving on to possibly win the Super Bowl. They sacked Joe Burrow and the Cincinnati Bengals 9 times, and did not win the game. That doesn't happen, really. That doesn't happen, period. The offense has to play better, and most importantly, Ryan Tannehill has to play better. You can't have your first pass of the game and the last pass of the game be an interception that cost you a game when your team had 9 sacks on the opposing quarterback. And that's the reason why I say that I wish that somebody like Desmond Ridder falls to the Tennessee Titans and they shock everybody and take a quarterback. But like I said, whether it's him, whether it's a wide receiver, whether it's an offensive line, the fans are going to complain about it. But in this situation, with Ritter gone, I think they take Christian Watson, North Dakota State wide receiver. He's a guy that has some problems with catches. I will say that. But one, he's a big wide receiver. He's like 6'3", 210 pounds, and he is fast. He runs a 4.3 40, a 4.3 640. He will get behind the defense. You talk to any scout, and they will say he can fly on the field. The biggest question is his mental lapses with drops and his level of competition, because he's going to be somebody that they got Robert Woods to run routes. They got A.J. Brown to run routes. They got Austin Hooper to run routes. They need him to open up the field. They need him to open up the top of the defense, go deep, and leave the field wide open for A.J. Brown and Robert Woods and everybody else. So I think they go Christian Watson to open up their draft, and a draft that won't have much picks for the Titans until later on in the draft. They'll have a 3rd round pick and then 2 fourths, and then move on from there. Tampa Bay Buccaneers, they don't have too many weaknesses, but they did lose offensive line this offseason. Alex Cappa went to the Cincinnati Bengals, so I think they need to replace him. I think they do that with Zion Johnson, the guard out of Boston College. There were some rumors that he had some medical red flag. Excuse me, it wasn't him that he may fall, he may drop a little bit. Kenyon Green was the guy who had a medical red flag, and they said he may fall, but I don't think he'll fall that far. Zion Johnson, one of the best guards in college. My number 3 interior offensive lineman. Funny, the number 1 interior offensive lineman hasn't gone yet, but I have Zion going to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers as to help replace and protect, obviously, Tom Brady, and that's going to be the most important thing on that team. Speaking of my top interior offensive linemen, the Green Bay Packers at 28. Now, they had a couple of injuries last year on the offensive line. They had a couple of injuries pretty much everywhere last year, but they were still able to be number 1 seed. It hurt them in the playoffs. But with this pick, I think they take Tyler Linderbaum out of Iowa. He's primarily a center. He can play guard. I think he's a guy that is really going to help stabilize the depth of that offensive line. If somebody gets hurt again, he can step right in there. So I got him falling to the Green Bay Packers. Moving to the next one, the Chiefs with 2 straight picks at 29 and 30. Now, let me first say this. I think the Kansas City Chiefs will trade up. I do. I think they will trade up. I think they will be, if Jameson Williams falls, that will be the person they target to try to get. If Chris Olave falls, I think that'll be a person they try to get up. I think they're going to try to replace Tyreek Hill's speed with more speed. I think that's just how they look at it. They want somebody that's going to be a blazer on the outside. And in my opinion, the 2 biggest blazers on the outside in this draft, unless you're going to take Christian Watson because he is also a blazer, I think you have to go with somebody like a Jameson Williams, like a Chris Olave, or somebody like Jahan Dotson. And that's why I have going to them with the first pick at 29. I think Jahan Dotson is somebody that if he doesn't go to a team like the Chiefs, he probably will slip to early 2nd round. But I put him in here just for the Chiefs alone, if they can't trade up, which I think they may be able to do. I think a perfect trade partner will be the Eagles, because I think they can still find a way to get somebody like a Drake London around this range. Because I'm just not a big fan of Drake London. But I think Chiefs trade up to try to get a big wide receiver, a fast wide receiver. If they don't, I think they stay here and take Jahan Dotson. With the other Chiefs pick at 30, I think they're going to replace the other big guy they lost, Mateo, the safety. They really need to get somebody back there to try to fill some of those big shoes that he held. And I think they take Daxton Hill out of Michigan. He's my number 3 safety. Is back and forth between him and Brisker. But I think that it's going to be one of those situations where it's just going to be the best available for them. I think they really have a need at safety. I think he helps them out as their back line because he's very rangy. He has good speed. He's solid. He has solid hands. He doesn't have great hands, but he has solid hands. I think that really helps them out. At 31, the Cincinnati Bengals. Now, I want to quickly just talk about the Cincinnati Bengals because they've done an unbelievable job this offseason filling what was their biggest weakness, their offensive line. And in my opinion, they've actually made it a strength. You go and look at everything that they've done this offseason with whether it was signing Ted Karras at center to be their future center, well, not future center, but to be their center, whether it was to, signing La'el Collins to be their right tackle for a great deal. Let me just mention that. You had a great deal with him. You had them signing Alex Kappa from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So you just stacked out your center, right guard, and right tackle in the offseason. And then you already have Jonah Williams coming back, who has actually played well. He's the only guy on the offensive line that really played well last year. And then you get to use Jackson Carman, who was your second-round pick last year. So you got 2 draft picks from the previous years. You got 3 guys you signed this year that are all good. You pretty much made Joe Burrow's day because he already had Jamar Chase. He already has T. Higgins. He already has Tyler Boyd. They have Hayden Hurst. They have weapons. They have Joe Mixon in the backfield. They needed to protect their prized possession, Joe Burrow, or he wouldn't make it to the end of his second contract. So they need to get that. They went and got that done. I think the Bengals, now that people are going to be saying, oh, well, they had their lucky year and they're going to drop back a little bit, I think the Bengals are going to go nothing but up. I really think. Now, that doesn't mean they're going to make it to the Super Bowl again because you need a little luck to get to the Super Bowl. Every team will tell you that you need a little luck to get to the Super Bowl. But I think this definitely improves your chances of getting to that Super Bowl next year. And with that pick, because of them taking care of the offensive line, I think they can now look at the defense. Now, I think this could be a Devin Lloyd spot. This could be a Nakobe Dean spot. I'm going to go with cornerback, which I think is their biggest need because Eli Apple still sucks. It really does. I think they're going to go with Kyler Gordon from Washington, the second Washington cornerback taken in the first round. They're usually pretty good at putting out corners. So I think they're going to stay and take him to pretty much be the replacement for the very talkative Eli Apple, who pretty much his bark is much bigger than his bite. But we'll see if he can change his ways or if they shut him up or what they're going to do with him. But I got Kyler Gordon, cornerback, going to the Cincinnati Bengals. And with the final pick of the 2022 NFL Draft, the Detroit Lions, I think, take a quarterback. I think it will be Matt Corral from Mississippi. I think this is the perfect spot for them. And if not them, another team I can see trading up into the back of the first round. Whether I think the Titans if the Titans don't get the guy they want, they are a perfect candidate to trade down into the second round because they want picks. I think, just like I said earlier in the draft, the Panthers are the team that wants to trade down the most because they don't have much picks. The Titans, if their guy doesn't fall to their spot, they are probably the ones that want to trade down the most. I mentioned on my Twitter that a chance of trading pick 26 to the New York Jets for pick 35 and 69. I think that works out for both teams because Jets now have 3 first-round picks. They get to fill in another spot that they don't take early. They already got a pass rusher. They got a wide receiver. Now they can go and take a cornerback. While the Titans can move back and still probably get a George Pickens or somebody similar to that ilk. The Detroit Lions are a team that I think if they do end up taking the pick, they'll end up taking a defensive player. Their offense is getting better. They also could go wide receiver, but I think they're pretty set at wide receiver for this year. If they do take another weapon, it'll be next year. I don't think it'll be this year. They have their tight end. They have their running back. Line is not that bad. I think they go defense. But I think the reason why I have them taking Matt Corral is, can you really fully trust Jared Goff? I don't think they do. I don't think they're going to take one at number 2 because it's too early with the quarterbacks that are available in this draft. But taking one at 32 is the best situation for them because if you're going to take a quarterback, you want to take him in the in the first round so you can get that 5th year of eligibility of control. You want to be able to have that as a backup or as like a safety. You always want that extra year that you can say, all right, I can check this guy out for 5 years instead of 4 years. That 1 year could be the year they explode. So you really want to have somebody for that extra year, especially quarterback, because quarterbacks could take a while to develop. So I personally think that Corral will get taken in the first round, whether it's Detroit or somebody else. I think there'll be 4 quarterbacks that do end up going in the first round. And that, my friend, actually ends my mock draft, teams 1 through 32. It's a very tough thing to do. Like, it's tougher than people think. I know that more and more people are doing mock drafts every year, and so you may get tired of them, and that's all right. But it's a big job because it's fun. It's fun. It's as fun as you can see with like fantasy football and everybody predicting what's going to happen in fantasy football. It's the same thing. You're just predicting what's going to happen in this. So with that said, as we head into the last minute of the show, we are now about 26 hours away from the NFL draft. I hope all you guys enjoyed the show. You guys will be able to root your team on them all, assuming they have a first round pick. If they don't, they'll turn it on Friday and see who they got. But with that said, I'm your host, Peter Pac-Man Clark, the Sports God. You can catch me again on Twitter, PACMAN 453323. And you can send me any messages if you want to know about my team, your team, everybody's team. I'll catch you guys next week. We'll talk about baseball. We'll recap the draft, everything else in sports, baby. Peace out.